going on, guys? This is the Fullstack bro coming at you with another video today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to become a senior software developer. Now, there might be some developers that are watching this today that are in that intermediate level, and they're just trying to figure out how to get over that hump, right? How to become senior. What are the qualities of a senior developer? Well, as a person that's been working as a developer for 11 plus years, it took me a long time to get to that senior level. There's a lot of learning how to communicate between different teams. When you're dealing with like a developer versus like a product manager, stakeholders, there's a lot of different communication styles that you have to adapt to. Also doing tech planning with different projects that are coming down the line that you need to work on effectively, and you have to make sure that the requirements are correct. But I have a list here that's going to outline everything that you need to know to become senior and work towards that goal. And it's not going to be like a 1 year thing. It might take you at least 2 to 3 years to get to this, but it's all about how much time and effort you're putting into becoming better and just understanding what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis, okay? So the first thing that's on my list is you need to constantly work on projects. You need to constantly build. If you build more projects, it's going to help you understand the code better. It's going to help you understand what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be refactored, what is considered tech debt. Tech debt, in my opinion, a very crucial part in software development. And the reason why this is because when you are working on a project and the code there just doesn't make any sense, and you have to pivot and figure out whether you need to refactor this code now or later. And sometimes you don't have to do anything. You just leave it there and it should be fine. And whoever wants to deal with it, they have to work on it. But my philosophy is when you're working on something that touches old code and you're identifying it as bad code, take care of it right away, because it's going to help you in the future when you have to go back and write additional functionality for that feature. Understanding that first and foremost, you'll be in a good spot. You'll be in a good spot once you do that. The more projects that you do, the more acclimated you'll get to like the project and what works, what doesn't work. And you're going to be able to build on making the product more scalable, right? And making it more performant just by what you learned from your previous projects and what works. So the more projects you build, the better you'll get. The second thing is understanding the key requirements. Now, when you're working on a project, the biggest thing is the requirements. Now, whenever I get a project, I look at the requirements thoroughly, and I always find little gotchas that as I'm developing things, it makes sense in the beginning. So I understand the initial requirements that needs to get done, but there's always edge cases that come up as you start to build. And you need to communicate that with your product manager. There's a lot of different like edge cases that you really don't have to worry about, but in certain cases, you need to just bring up those edge cases so that it's at least documented. Always have that open line of communication with your product manager, and make sure that the stakeholders know, hey, we found a couple edge cases. Does it even make sense to even go down this route, or should we not even care about it? So that's one of the big things that I've learned, is to always keep an open mind, read through the requirements thoroughly. If there's any edge cases, bring it up, have that open line of communication, have those meetings so that when it comes to building it, you're not frustrated that it keeps coming back and forth with new requirements. Next thing, like I said, is communication. When it comes to becoming a senior developer, you have to communicate with different teams. That's the only way you're going to get better. That's the only way you're going to be more resilient in terms of building projects on your own, understanding key requirements, building a system from scratch, and having that open line of communication to where you can actually reach out to the stakeholders and be like, hey, is this the route that we want to go? And, build a case as to why we shouldn't go this route versus why we should. This is going to help you jump into becoming a senior, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. yes, you're going to be an individual contributor. You're going to be building things and you're going to be still working on those projects, more of the complex projects, because now people have more faith in you to get a job done. But ultimately, the communication that you need to have with your team members and everybody else within the team, you have to adapt to different communication styles. And that's going to help you grow and help everyone understand what the expectations are with this project. So work on your communication. If you're a person that don't like to communicate at all, work on that. Start participating in meetings that you're in for like tech planning and, improving development process. Start doing the communication. Start being the one in the meeting to always speak up and ask questions. The more questions that you'll ask, the right questions, the easier it will be to get the information that you need to become successful. The next thing for me personally is being a team player. You have to be a team player. If there's an issue that I'm stuck on for at least 30 to 45 minutes or an hour, I'm reaching out to someone to see if they could help me solve this problem. I'm not going to spend more than that to solve a problem because there's no need for it. To become a senior software developer, you have to know what battles you could potentially win and when it's time to ask for help. And being able to do that is going to help you so much and is going to make you better for it. So, and then also helping other developers on the team, right? Like if they need help with something, don't hesitate to just jump on that call and look at the problem and try to solve it together. The next thing is thinking outside of the box. So when it comes to working on projects, building features, you got to think outside the box. There's so many times I've looked at a project and I understand the core of what we want to build, but then, I think about, okay, what would happen if a user did this? Or what would happen if go down this particular path? And then have that mindset to where the requirements are not always set in stone and we need to branch off into different business cases or edge cases that potentially could happen. Like say, for example, if you had a list, right? And if you had like 20 items in this list and you need to create the ability to clear certain items in the list, right? If the requirements say, click on a list item, a button is enabled to remove it. And then once you click on that button, the confirmation window comes up like, are you sure you want to remove this? You click yes, it does the process and it removes it. But if you have multiple items that you want to move at a time, doing it one by one is going to be annoying. Even if you had a delete all button, there might be certain items in that list that you don't want to delete, right? So you want to make it so that you could capture, okay, I could multi-click any items in this list. The button becomes enabled. I click delete, the confirmation window pops up, and now everything that I selected should be removed from that list and everything that I want to keep should be in that list. So this is what I mean by thinking outside the box. When the requirements say that, you gotta be like, wait a minute, but like, what about this, right? Like, what about like having the ability to select multiple and processing those items? That helps with performance. Doing it one by one, I'll get frustrated. This comes with the more projects that you build. You're gonna start to understand, hey, we've done this in other areas of the app. This is what we need to do here so that it's more consistent. And having that mindset will make you become a senior developer. Okay, so always think outside the box, always question the requirements, and you should be okay. Next thing is understanding the best practices. Now, this goes hand in hand with how the coding infrastructure is, right? So like when I look at a project, if I see that we are using, for example, React, right? That's like my bread and butter right now. But using React and we're using context, what I would want to do is make sure that we're using context in the right places, right? Any libraries that we're using to improve functionality, we want to make sure that we're using the same libraries. We're not going to introduce another library unless the library that we're currently using in the code base has issues. I'm a big believer in if it helps us with development time so that we don't have to create it on our own, and there's a lot of documentation for it and how to use it, go for it. But understanding best practices as to how you should write your code, how the code should be formatted, workflows are created. If you understand best practices, what's going to take you far and what is considered tech debt, like I said in the beginning, you should be in a good spot. And always, if there's something that you could do better when you're refactoring code, always bring it up to the team so that everybody's on the same page too. And then also create documentation. Documentation is going to help with the transition of new developers that are getting onboarded to your team. You just point them to the documentation like, hey, this is the standard that we're going by, and work with them and mentor them on how to effectively write code, and have a standard doc to where anything that changes, now you have a doc that you'll constantly update to make it better. Key thing to becoming a senior developer is understanding the best practices. And then the last thing, the biggest thing for me, was to drop the ego and always be a student. I felt like every transition in my career, I had to learn new things. And the biggest thing is, when you're learning a new technology, it only benefits the project that you're working on. If there's something that you really don't care about, like for example, I was managing websites, right, at one point as a web developer, and I had to learn Joomla, I had to learn WordPress. And after a while, once I transitioned into the software engineering role, I didn't have to do that anymore, right? I didn't have to learn anything about WordPress. I don't even know what's going on with WordPress or Joomla. But at that time, there was a need for it. So I had to spend a lot of time understanding PHP, understanding, creating my own custom web pages. And now I'm just working on building applications and using a framework like React or, Next.js, whatever. There's a need to do that because that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. If there's a new technology that works with React, I'm going to learn it. If there's a new library that's going to help me solve a problem, I'm going to learn that, and I'm going to bring it up to the team and tell them, hey, here's a library that we could potentially use to solve this problem and any future problems that come up within our app to make it better. If there's something that you're very passionate about that you want to learn, of course, learn it on your own. If there's any projects that you're going to be working on your own, learn that. But, always have an open mind with learning something new. If there's a way to write your code, if you're getting, say, for example, you have a pull request out with a bunch of code that was changed, and you're getting peer reviewed by a senior developer and they're giving you constructive criticism, take it. And if you don't really necessarily agree with it, obviously have that communication open. Just don't take it as face value, but always have an open mind to new possibilities of writing your code. That's the video, guys. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know if what these qualities of becoming a senior software developer, if these helped you towards your journey. And let me know if you need any help. All right? Talk soon.